Oh, hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey today. We are here on an Outliers Edge roundtable where we assemble some extraordinary outliers who are playing the game in their own way, and we spend time seeing how they continue to leverage that to make more impact and more income and do it in a way that's in integrity to them throughout. I want to make sure you get a chance to meet these esteemed guests here. Why don't we start off with you, Jamie? If you can let us know more about you and the game that you play.
Yeah, first of all, what a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. Jamie George, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I occasionally write books. I host a podcast called the Thrivalist Podcast, and I spend most of my days executive coaching. In Nashville, we've got a lot of entertainers, celebrities, athletes, CEOs, and a lot of my fun is with burgeoning business owners, lots of entrepreneurs who are trying to figure it out. And being one myself, I identify with that struggle. So thanks for the invitation.
Glad that you're here. Thank you so much. Martine, let's get to know you and then we'll go to Paul.
It's
Tell us
so
about the game that you're playing.
I will tell you about the game I'm playing. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for the invite as well. So my name is Martine Ellis. I'm based in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, and I'm a well-being driven productivity coach, trainer, and consultant. And what that means is I'm interested in the intersection between well-being and productivity. And I help people who help others for a living learn how to prioritize their needs and put themselves first. So that's kind of where I do my best work. You can find out about me at martineellis.com. I'm also a podcaster. We're a bunch of podcasters here, which is really exciting. Honestly, my podcast is really more like a series of voice notes, but still, it's fun to share my thoughts with my voice with the world, as well as with the articles and things that I write. So, yeah, you can find my podcast in all the usual places, and it's called the Wellbeing Driven Productivity Podcast.
All right. Thank you, Martine. And let's get to know you, Paul. Bring us in. Let us know about you and the game you
Hi,
play.
my name is Paul Sloane. I'm an author and speaker. I live in Sunningdale, which is near Windsor in England. And I speak and write on lateral thinking and the leadership of innovation. And I have a background in management. I was a CEO, a marketing director, VP of international for software companies. And then for the last 20 years, I've been helping people and organizations to think more creatively and therefore to generate more innovation, more entrepreneurial activity inside their organizations. And it's a lot of fun. So I run workshops and give talks. I've written a number of books. My latest book is called Lateral Thinking for Every Day. And I also do podcasts, of course, everyone does podcasts. One of my podcasts is called Desperate and Appalling, which is a podcast between me, Paul, and Des McHale, who's my co-author. That's where the Desperate and Appalling comes in. I also do one called Think Like an Innovator and one which is Pathways to Triumph, which is interviews with interesting people. So I do those things. I'm very active on social media, promoting my books and courses and talks. And I also like to play pickleball, chess, and golf.
So outliers, when I say we bring together esteemed group of outliers, I am not messing around at all, right? We have an awesome opportunity to explore things, and each of you, I'm seeing that there's a lot of how to mess with people's thinking and help them to see things from different perspectives, right? And so as we go into this conversation, I'm curious about the different perspectives that you've had, and some of the things that you've used to continue to up level your thinking along the way, right? I'm going to ask this question here. It's been one that I really enjoy because it gives me a chance to get to see you as well. I'm gonna let you know the order of where I'm going to go, and then I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to go Jamie, then Martine, and then Paul. And this way, us outliers, we get a chance to hear and associate your name and with what you say. So here's the question. Uh, as you all have gone through your journey, there have been different beliefs that you may have had where you're like that have had to upgrade with you, right? And I'm curious about what is a recent belief that you've had to like up level in order to play the game that you play right now. All right. So we'll start off with you, Jamie, then we'll go to Martine, and then Paul will go there, and then we'll open it up from there.
This is both recent and ancient. It is something I have been working through for quite a few years. It's the temptation in me to have a disproportionate sense of responsibility for other people. In psychology, we call that codependency. The definition of that is if you're not okay, I'm not okay. For someone who is naturally an empath, we feel the hurts and feelings and needs and wants of other people pretty easily. It's pretty permeable for us. That's our superpower. It's a gift. It's not hard to be compassionate, loving, kind. The shadow side of that is my temptation to want to rescue them and remove them from the tension, the very tension that might be needed in their life for them to expand and learn and grow. And so a lot of my writing has been around that. Martine, you mentioned, we tend to write about what we've experienced and what we've come through. And I've been through a stage in burnout too. And we talked about that a little before the podcast. And that's what mine came from. Mine came from just an overly developed sense of feeling responsible for everyone else. And so, yeah, a lot of my work has been learning boundaries. How do I actually root into who I am, hold the space for other people with compassion, absence of judgment, mirror back to them what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, offer them tools, structure, accountability, but recognize that they're an adult who's responsible for their own decisions.
Amy, thank you for that. As a recovering people pleaser myself, there are things in what you say that really strike me and resonate here. Thanks for getting us started off in such a strong way. Martine?
Actually, what Jamie said really resonated with me because I, throughout my career, have had this overwhelming urge to help people. And that's I worked in finance for 10 years. That was the start of my career. And I did really well. I made board of directors before I was 30. And then I had this kind of very early midlife crisis where I sussed out that I wasn't really helping anybody. And all of a sudden I was like, no, I really need to help people in my work. And working in finance, I was only just helping rich people get richer. And that's no disrespect to anybody who works in finance, but I wanted something else. I wanted to help. So I went from kind of boss to trainee to move to become a trainee teacher. And that's what I did. And this desire to help people, you're sort of alluding to that, Jamie, that really resonated with me because the belief that had to shift for me was if you're going to help people, you have to help yourself first. And that's where this notion for me of well-being driven productivity came from. To do well, you need to be well. You actually have to prioritize your needs. And as a trainee teacher, the first year when I got really burnt out, my first year of teaching, I was like, no, I have to put my students first. My students are my focus. That's what I have to do. But that's totally back to front. Because if you don't look after yourself and your needs, you can't show up for your students. So in that first year, that was kind of the belief that shifted. And that's been kind of growing and developing ever since, this idea that you have to look after yourself before you can look after anyone else. And, I know we talk about it a lot, when you go on a plane and they have the oxygen mask thing that they say, put yours on before you help anyone. We're told this all the time, but it's different being told that information to actually experiencing it yourself and putting those practices in place to prioritize yourself and your needs. So I would say that it's quite similar to yours, Jamie, and I apologize for that, but I think it's quite something that a lot of people have experienced. So that's definitely a belief that has been, like, as you put it, Jamie, from a long time ago, but still like right up to now as well, something you're still changing and working on.
I really appreciate y'all bringing this in here because the story of outliers out here who've had success that most people would consider like successful on other people's terms. You're like, I made board of directors before 30, but like it wasn't the success I was looking for, and then being able to have to shift your mindset to be able to actually allow yourself to get to where you want to be. I really think that people listening to this or watching this are like, oh yeah, you see me, you get it. And I appreciate that. Paul, let's come to you. What's a belief that is upgraded over time with you as you continue to play bigger and bigger games?
Yes, a very good question. I gave a TEDx talk called "Are You Open-Minded?" And when I talk with audiences about whether they're open-minded, one of the questions I ask is, what belief have you changed? What major belief have you changed your mind on in the last few years? And most people haven't. Most people get their beliefs set early in life and stay with them. And it's an interesting, because if you never change your belief, you're not open-minded. You're not receptive to new ideas. You're not moving with the times, because things do change. And there are many examples I could give from my own life. When I was the managing director, we had a young lad came in and worked for us, and he was only 14, and he was a Pakistani origin. He was called Ajaz, and he was keen as mustard. He worked in the marketing department, and we used him as a dog's body, a factotum. He did lots of things, and he picked up things really rapidly. And later on, I worked in a different company. I was VP International for a US software company called MathSoft. And he came in again. At that time, he was at university and doing business studies. And he came to me one day, he said, Paul, he said, I've decided to quit university and start my own business. And I said, Jazz, whatever you do, don't do that. Complete your course, work for a few companies, start a business when you're in your early 30s, when you've got some experience, when you know what's going on in the world. You're still very raw. And yeah, I know you're keen, but don't do it anyway. He ignored my advice. And he quit his course and he started his company, which he called AKQA after him. And it now employs over 3,000 people all around the world. It's a major digital marketing agency, and they have clients like Nike and Ferrari and other people, Virgin. And the lesson it taught me was you can start a business at any age. And in fact, being very young can be a real advantage, because you've got all that energy and you don't know what can't be done. You're not limited by the assumptions that so many more experienced people have. And also, what I say to young people now when I speak in schools is, if you start your own business and you work at it and it fails, you'll still have learned a tremendous amount. You'll have far more useful experience to another employer than someone who's never worked, who's only worked in an office job. And if you've been responsible for marketing and doing the website and everything else, then you've got a wealth of experience. So that's something I learned and I changed my mind on. And there are many other things I could mention too.
Well, I'm glad you brought this in here. Thank you. And like one of the things I had to write down on this was like, if you never change your belief, you're not open-minded. There was something in there that was just like simple around it. It's like, well, I'm open-minded. Well, what beliefs have you changed recently? And Outliers, I'm going to bring this out to you right here, right? Like, you know, there's things that we pride ourselves on as Outliers here. And one of the questions I'll ask is like, what was the question here? What major belief have you changed your mind on the last few years?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yep.
And there aren't, maybe gay marriage, you know, when it was first mooted, I thought, no, marriage is a man and a woman, surely, and that's the basis for the family, and so on. And then we met a couple of men who married, and they adopted some children, and they're marvelous parents and really committed. And it changed my attitude to that. And there are a few other things like that. Major social issues. Where are you? And very often what you find is people are dogmatic. We had this thing called Brexit in the UK, and people were heavily committed either to leaving or remaining in the European Union. And in America, you can see with the Democrats and the Republicans, there's very little common ground. People don't work together and find common ground. They're so full of criticizing the other people and finding fault with them. And yet other people have good ideas and bad ideas, and you can learn something from everyone, and you should be prepared to learn and adapt as you go along.
Martine, Jamie, anything that's coming for you as on any part of this conversation? I'll bring in a new question in a bit, but before I do, I just want to create some space for y'all.
Yeah, I had a little thought actually about beliefs, self-belief, belief in myself. So I'm making it all about me. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
you're good, Martine. Run with it, please.
Most of my life, I've assumed that I'm just not very good at change. I hate change. That's just been this narrative that I've had about myself. No, I don't do change. I like routine. I'm neurodivergent, so I think it's part of that. Do you know what I mean? It's quite a typical neurodivergent tendency to not be into change. But do you know what? The older I get, and when I look back on career and life and all of those things, there have been a ton of changes, and I've navigated them really well. And I've always come out the other side better. I've always been able to go, whether it's using career change as the example, I've never looked back. I've always gone, well, I really learnt from that. And even though that wasn't a fun year, I got that from that experience. And I'm starting to change that belief in myself that I'm rubbish with change and that I hate it. It might be uncomfortable, but I seem to do it fairly well. So that's a change in terms of a belief about myself that's happening for me right now. I'm not as bad as I think I am at change, even though it's really uncomfortable.
I love that. I love that. I just had Carl Jung coming to mind when both of you were talking about it. The magic is really in the ability to hold the opposites.
Yes.
Right, Paul? It was something you were saying, like
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, right. It's able to hold the tension between the opposites, and what I'm grateful for is, you know, I'm in the States, but we've lived in this very highly masculine, dense way of thinking, and there's been this rise of the feminine. In psychology, they call it pendulamic propensity. Sometimes the pendulum swings the other way, and you're trying to find where is this balance, but watching this tension between masculine and feminine and honoring these two energies and recognizing, you know, I see masculine as heavily, it really focuses on order. It wants order. It wants some sort of control, wants some kind of certainty, even though certainty is a bit of an illusion. But that's the benefit of masculine, right? The beauty of feminine is it's genesis, it's chaos, it's beginning, it's the ocean to me. It's newness, and in learning how to hold the tension of those opposites. I think all of us have those two energies. That's part of the magic of life. And I like the way Paul framed it, is when we get stuck in some fundamentalism, either side, and some kind of dogma, and we refuse to change our beliefs, then we're not malleable, we're not coachable, and we miss out on, Paul's term, innovating, but we just really miss out on the opportunity to transform and learn and grow and walk with a certain humility that says, gosh, thank you for teaching me. There's a great line I heard one time: life is either happening to you or life is happening for you. And if life is happening for you, then it's coming as your teacher, and everything's an opportunity to grow and learn.
I appreciate y'all to say, you know, y'all make me smile. I would love to take it here into something that you're building now, right? So Outliers here, we're creating it. And actually, right before I do that, I want to just reach out. Outliers, like, take some time right now. Think about some beliefs you have right now. Like, give yourself that space to be open-minded, to play in some of these areas that Jamie and Martine and Paul were just talking about. And, you know, you're a participant in this conversation. We're just having the conversation for you on your behalf right now, but you're still a part of this. So let's bring it in and see what we do with it. So what I'm going to do now, the first question I asked, and I want everyone to answer, and this one will just let it flow, right? This one here, I want to get a sense into what you're building now, because a lot of outliers who are listening to this, they're in the game. They've been successful. Maybe they're sitting on the board of directors right now, and they're like, but like, how do I leave something where everyone else around me is saying that this is like, you've reached it, and you know, like, so I want to come in and ask you all about something that's more in the unknown for you. What's a project that you're working on? What's something that you're excited about that you're building and creating right now? And what's one of like we'll do it in two parts. So, a project that you're excited about, and something you're proud about, like, is happening with it, what makes you excited about it. And then just like put into the space of like, what's one of the challenges that you're I'm going to say, eager to overcome. All right. I like putting this out here because it puts us in the space of like, hey, how do y'all navigate the unknown? Because a lot of us out here are trying to figure that out ourselves. Does anyone have a project that they want to talk about, something that excites them, and to speak about, you know, the growth that they're going through as they're bringing it to life?
Yeah, I'd happily explain a bit about what I'm working on at the moment. I would describe it as the third phase of my career in many ways, because I've alluded to the fact that I started in finance, and then I had a leadership career in finance, and then a whole other leadership career in education. I know I don't look old enough. You don't have to say it. Nobody said it. That's fine. So I've had two.
Martine, you look so young. That's not
Jamie,
possible.
thank you so much for saying that. I didn't prompt that at all. Definitely not a career in comedy. That is not something on the horizon for me. But anyway, I am building the third phase of my career at the moment. So I left education just over a year ago and decided that I wanted to build my own business and sort of take that leap from being employed to being self-employed. So I'm kind of in a different place to you guys, because you are both self-employed and have very successful businesses by the sounds of things. This is all still quite new to me, although I've had two very successful careers. So I left my sort of leadership role in education. I was working in further education, leading professional development and teacher training a year ago. And what I decided to do was take a sort of part-time education role working for a charity, and then spend the other half of my week working for myself and developing my business. And I'm still, it's a year in and I'm still working out what that business looks like. But the thing that I'm really loving is the coaching side of what I'm doing. I've coached for years as an educator, but I'm now kind of expanding into coaching, focusing on well-being and productivity and so on. And that just gives me so much joy to be able to help individual people just get through these barriers of sort of productivity issues and burnout and just being exhausted all the time and struggling to manage their energy. And that's what I'm loving building, is the coaching element of my business. It's scary, having kind of don't know where the next pound is coming from, but thankfully I have the employed job to keep me going in that respect. And so I'd say that is the unknown is the challenge, and just kind of only having myself to answer to is a challenge. But I'm really loving it. It's really exciting for me. So that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, no, let's keep going. I wanted to have a quick follow up on that. Here,
Sure.
thank you for bringing it in and being here. I'm excited. I'm excited for you because I think about outliers out there who've had success in their careers and like now I'm making a shift I'm making a shift. What is something that you're bringing from that made you successful in your past careers? And that you're bringing into your work now. Like, what's something that's helped you bridge that in a meaningful way?
So many things. I kind of sort of said about it earlier, how I never kind of look back and regret any of the things that I've learned in my various careers that I've done. So there's so much I'm taking from my time in finance and my time in education. I think the one thing I would highlight maybe is my love of learning. The fact that particularly in education, you have to be a lifelong learner in education, because if you don't love learning, you're a rubbish teacher. That's the reality. You have to love learning because your students will know. That's just how it works. So that passion for learning is really kind of pulling me through this next phase, because there's so much to learn and everything is so different, and I'm getting it's so exciting to learn new things about what having my own business looks like, and how to navigate, promote. I'm gonna have to talk to Paul afterwards, I think, about social media, because it sounds like you've absolutely got it nailed. I find it a really tricky environment sometimes, but yeah, the love of learning is definitely something that's carrying me through.
Well, A, I hope y'all talk. B, I'm excited by this here from the standpoint of like being able to bridge and bring things along with you. A lot of times I'll talk to people who are taking on like new projects like this or like starting new businesses, and they're like, that was the past and that's all I'm starting from scratch. And when I experience you, I don't experience that. So thank you for putting that in a little bit. Jamie, I'm curious for you. Like, what's something right now that's going on that really excites you? And what's the unknown associated with it?
Yeah, I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. I'll just list off a bunch of my failures.
Yeah.
Because I was excited about all of these. And so as an entrepreneur, so my baseline is I'm a coach and I have two basic products. I do a 6-week and an annual. And it's a pretty high ticket. Most of my folks are very, very successful multimillionaires. So that's my baseline. But look, you can't scale a business when you're the technician doing all the coaching, right? So the one thing this is what I'm coaching. I'm coaching these people around me, and they're buying and selling companies and all. And I'm clearly, there was a place where a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, I'm not setting myself up to buy and sell a coaching company. And I'm aware of the fact that we've not scaled. I'm aware of the fact that I'm still the guy as the technician doing the thing. And I kind of wanted to. I was in a, like Martina transition where I didn't really I'd run something for 30 years and I didn't want to. So I kind of like just being the guy on his own, doing his thing. But after doing it for about 4 or 5 years, I'm like, okay, I feel the weight of it. And so I'll give you a few of the things that I've done that have had some nominal success, maybe. I mean, we made a little money off them. We didn't lose, but it wasn't the answer. I had some guys who were really impacted and they were like, hey, can we do a men's event? Let's do a local men's event in Nashville. We'll do a meetup. We'll do a whole thing. Fantastic. We did probably 3 or 4 of them. The first one started out with a couple hundred people. By the time I got to the last one, we had 15. All of them had some value to them, but it wasn't the answer for scaling the company. And I had another guy say, oh, we should do events. Jamie, we're going to take people to Colorado. We're going to take them around the world. We're going to do this. We're going to do coaching and have these huge experiences. Awesome. We had our first event in Colorado, had an actor from LA. I mean, just had all these really cool people come out. Fantastic. Did 2 more events. Couldn't get anybody signed up. We're going to do an online mastermind. I've also hosted masterminds in town, in person. We're going to do an online mastermind. And we did that. And that one's had a little bit more success. We planned it for a year. If I were to do it over again, I would plan it in 3-month increments. I think it's a little more punchy that way, and people kind of get to sign up for seasons as opposed to an annual. But I'm giving you those to say, look, I could also walk through where the failures, a lot of it was in marketing, not effectively communicating what we're doing. So my takeaway was each time we did it, we had something of value, but we were not able to sustain because we did not budget in such a way that we kept the marketing dollars where they needed to go in terms of paid leads or generation. Most of my business has been referral. And so I'm kind of sitting here today super aware of these are some of the needs as an entrepreneur in the business in places we need to shift intention, income, direction. I literally was sitting last night with one of my own business mentors talking about this very thing and going, okay, these are some of the places I have to address. So I hope that's a word of encouragement. We have a very successful company, but at the end of the day, if I die, it's not going to be real successful anymore. And so, if you're really going to build a company, it's expanding and scaling and building a team and you got to spend money on marketing. And so it's one of the reasons that I was drawn to you, actually. I was like, you know what? I appreciate what you're doing. I love the fact that you're hustling. And I'm like, I'm in. My assistant called me. He's like, you want to be on this podcast? I'm like, man, I love this dude. I love what he's doing. Sure. I'm in. Sign me up. Because I really do have an appreciation for people who are able to put the hard work in, and so much of it is like throwing noodles at the wall and finding what sticks. And you got to be willing. You got to be willing to do something, And so I have no regrets over what we've done, but I certainly am exposed in terms of as Paul mentioned, they were great places for us to learn. And so I got a team, actually, we're talking about building where we're going to go next. And so if we do this 3 months from now, I might have a very robust answer in a very different way.
Personally, I'm excited to hear the 3-month update, so like we have to bring you in here to let us know about it. Yeah, thank you, Jamie. That was full. So I want to give us a chance to respond back to it. And Paul, I'm going to come and I'll ask you the same question about the excited part. But Martine, Paul, anything that's flown for you that you want to either respond to, ask? Like, I don't know. There's just a lot in there, Jamie, that is really resonating with me, and I'm taking a breath.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. Martine said a lot about lifelong learning, and that's absolutely essential. That you've got to keep learning new skills, and if you're not keen on learning, you'll never be a good teacher. She said, and it's true. I've had to learn a lot of skills. And recently I've been learning about artificial intelligence and generative AI tools and incorporating them in my courses and changing courses and changing my talks to talk much more about artificial intelligence and the impact it's had. So new things you have to learn, but you can't learn everything and you have to choose which you're going to learn. And I also resonate with a lot of what Jamie said. I've been very successful in some of the things I've done, failed in some of the things I've done. Some of whilst running my own business, some things worked really well and some things have flopped. And after COVID took a real big hit on my business, people stopped wanting speakers and stopped having workshops. So I then had to pivot, and I pivoted to online courses. And I'm a very driven kind of guy. I'm very into success, and I compare myself to the top people on the online courses. And they're doing tens of thousands of dollars a month, and I'm doing, several $100s a month, which is reasonable, but I'm dissatisfied in many. I'm not the top speaker, a keynote speaker in the world, and I should be, I think. And I've come to realize that you have to think about success and not drive yourself so hard that you're unrealistic and you're always dissatisfied. And you've got to look at what you've achieved and be grateful for what you've achieved and appreciate what you've achieved and appreciate what you're good at. And you've got to say, what does success mean for me? And think about that. There was a young man called Liam Payne who took his life a couple of weeks ago. He was in One Direction, and he was a great singer. And he was plucked from obscurity at the age of 16. He went on a talent show. Martine will know him. You may not know him if you don't know who One Direction are. They were a big boys pop band. And he was a superstar, and fans all around the world, and one hit album after another. But he couldn't cope with the stress of it, and he struggled with alcoholism and drug abuse, and then he took his own life. And Matthew Perry, the Chandler from Friends, he couldn't cope with that level of success. Kurt Cobain of Nirvana couldn't cope with that level of success. And sometimes you've got to say, how much is enough? And do I want all this stress and burnout and pressure and anxiety that the level of success I'm aiming for will bring with it? Because they're the companions of success in terms of if you're really striving to be at the very top. Do you need to get to the very top, or is being partway up the mountain enough for you? There's a very good view from partway up the mountain. You don't have to go all the way to the top.
On this one here, I'm curious what you all think about this. Martine, I've seen you've unmuted a few times, so I want to get this space of this. Jamie, I know that you play with people who are in this space as well. So let's just keep the conversation flowing for a little bit.
Yeah, I really like what Paul said about coming up with your own definition of success. And I think my definition of success has changed various times throughout the past sort of 25 years or so. I thought my definition of success was driving a convertible, earning a good salary, and being on the board of directors of an international trust company. Turns out I was entirely wrong. My definition of success was being an underpaid teacher in front of a load of 16-year-olds trying to teach them shredding. Do you know what I mean? No, I really did teach shredding and filing at one point. That's another story for another time. So I think that's the bit that Paul said that made me go, yeah, 100%. Paul, I'm with you halfway up the mountain, enjoying the view. I think you have to be open to adjusting your definition of success and also your definition of failure as well, because this is a bit cringy, but in education, we talk, the acronym of FAIL is first attempt in learning, right? Yeah. Definition of success, definition of failure, these things change. And, you could certainly, as you get older as well, you adjust expectations and things. And I just think that's really wise. So I love that Paul said that. That definitely struck a chord with me.
Both of what you guys are saying is beautiful. Something you said sparked a thought from an author named Dan Sullivan. He talks about the gap and the gain. And he says, when we are constantly living, this relates to your well-being, Martine, when we're constantly living in the energy of what isn't, and we're looking at the horizon ahead, think about it. If you take 3 steps toward the horizon, where did the horizon go? It moved 3 steps. You take another 5 steps and it moved 5 steps, and the horizon is all. And so when we go, but when I get to that place, then that's when I'll be happy. That's when I'll be satisfied. That when we live in the gap, the problem is it's always moving. It's never satisfied. And there's something Paul said that just really made me, both of you, when you look backwards, you could almost create a vision board backwards. Hey, look where you came from. Hey, look what you learned. Look how you grew. This could be 2 years ago, or it could be yesterday. Look at the progress and the growth and the expansion that's happened in your soul. By the way, they talk about when you live in that energy, that's dopamine and serotonin that floods your body. When you live in the absence of what isn't yet, that's cortisol and adrenaline. So literally your state of being and how you show up in the world is different from a physiological standpoint. So if you're able, it doesn't mean we don't set goals. It doesn't mean we don't see the thing we want. We own it, but we let go of the outcome of it. And we appreciate where we've come from. And when you lead with that daily sense of gratitude for where you've been and the progress you've achieved, you actually enter the day with a different level of enthusiasm as opposed to the scarcity of what you've not yet achieved. And I love it because it goes right back to what Martine's talking about. This is a journey of well-being. Like it's cliche, but things are cliche for a reason. If it's not the destination, it's really the journey. Like this is about the journey. It's about your day to day. And are you enjoying it? What's your sense of well-being today? If you're freaked out about what isn't, then you're in fear and not love. And we get to choose each day which energy we want to walk in.
We're all agreeing so much.
I know, right?
Disagree about something.
Absolutely. We need a disagreement, quick.
Yes, let's go.
For engagement.
There's a U.S. election coming up. We could. I'm sure we could find
they
something.
could
We
Yeah.
can disagree on that.
Yeah.
Even the Brits have opinions, Jamie.
We do.
Yeah.
They're not always welcome.
No, I've noticed that too.
Look, I want to say thank you to each of you here. I thoroughly have been enjoying this conversation, and I can bring in another question, but I want to you are all clearly just well experienced, and you approach life from, I can see, with intention and with reflection. And I want to actually give us a space. I'll go to each of you on this one, and then I'll have a wrap up question afterwards. But I want to go to each of you. If there's a message that you can impart to outliers who are listening to this, right? You all, you've lived things. You're still growing in new ways, and you've also had to upgrade yourself along the way. If there's a message that you would want to impart towards them, I don't normally do this, but actually I really trust y'all to put in something here. What's a message? What's something that you would want to share with outliers? Paul, I'm going to start with you because I've always started with Jamie, so I'm going to start with you. Then we'll go to Jamie, then Martine. What's something you want to leave outliers?
Well, there's lots of good advice I could give. I'm very good at giving advice and telling people how to improve their lives, as most coaches and speakers are. What I would say is what you're looking for in life is something that you are good at, something you enjoy doing, and something that people will pay you money to do. And if you can find those three, you've got a formula for success, and you should develop that and work on what you're good at. So develop skills. What I say to young people is, in your 20s, you should be developing skills, transferable skills, skills in programming, skills in management, skills in people, skills in communication. And then in your 30s, very often, that's when you really start earning the big money, because you can deploy those skills. But you have to find something that suits you and you're good at, you enjoy doing, and people will pay you to do. And if you enjoy doing it, then it's not work. You just love going in and doing that stuff. I mean, I do. One of the things I do is cruise ship speaking, believe it or not. And people pay me money to speak on cruises or give me free cruises, and I just love it. And I get a big kick out of being on stage and speaking. It's something I love doing, and they're prepared to pay me to do it. So if you can find that, then work isn't really work. Work is a pleasure, and that's the holy grail.
Thanks for that, Paul. That's y'all are just you don't know, but you're opening up new channels of thinking. It's wait, you can do that? You can do that? That's fun. Jamie,
I'm very excited to hear about how you get into speaking on cruise ships. That sounds like the best job in the world.
It is the best job. It's such a good week.
I am messaging you after this.
Love it.
Jamie?
All expectations are premeditated resentments.
Say it again?
All expectations are premeditated resentments.
Make that real for us, Jamie.
So when I work with a client, usually session one, I say, I want to invite you into one action. I'm going to invite you to let go of every expectation you've ever had. Would you drop all expectations? Live the rest of your life without an expectation. And their reaction is similar to yours right now. Dear God, how am I supposed to do that? So nothing exists in a vacuum, right? But expectations are what we believe about how others will behave. Expectations are one directional. I have an expectation of you based on my bias and how I interpret the world, which, by the way, is my family of origin, it's my ethnicity, it's my culture, it's my birth order, it's my Enneagram, my Myers-Briggs, my disc profile. Right? I'm walking around on the planet with my own bias, and I have an expectation that you will see the world through the same common sense that I do. Problem with expectations, it's a one-way street, and sooner or later I'm going to resent you because you do not live up to my expectations. When I work with CEOs, they go, well, I've got expectations for all my workers. And I'm like, do you have expectations? Do you have agreements? So because nothing exists in a vacuum, what I say to my clients pretty quickly is what I want you to invite you to do is to let go of the expectations, but to replace those with agreements. See, now, whether you're parenting or whether you're a CEO or whether you're in a romantic relationship, if you actually take the time to articulate what it is you desire, own your own want, there's some ownership, and then also take the time to allow the other person to have the dignity of their own want, and meet together and negotiate those wants, you can negotiate your way into an agreement. This, by the way, this still works with the CEO and his COO, or hey, we got a project coming up. These are the 10 things I think we should do in the project. This is the CEO. Okay, great. Hey, what do you guys think? I like 1, 2, and 3. I don't know about 4. And the CEO goes, what if I get you some outside resources? Okay, yeah. I think we could do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that's good. Then somebody raised their hand. I think there's an 11 and 12 CEO. Oh, really? Okay. Well, what is that? I think it's this and that. Okay, so these are the 12 things. Yeah. Okay, so he's looking around the room and he goes, okay, so here's the 12 things for the projects. Well, somebody say that back to me, mirroring, so I'm clear. Somebody says back, okay, we're all on the same page? Yeah. Do we have an agreement? Yes. Very different energy than the CEO walking in and going, I got these 12 things. Make sure you do them. I need them by Friday. Totally different energy. In real time, I deal with, I hear the stories of the spouse who's pissed off because their husband's Saturday night at 11 o'clock. And what are you doing working? Well, the CEO's made me do this thing. I can't believe Kyle. He's forcing me to do a thing. Now, here's the difference. Saturday night, spouse goes, why are you working? Well, Kyle came in. We're doing a project and I agreed with him. I made an agreement. Yeah, but I want to watch you working late. Well, honey, I made an agreement. I keep my agreements. That's a very different energy in a home. So, there's a long way to go on that, but it's a fun little twist.
I appreciate like that distinction there of agreements and expectations and allies. I'm going to invite you to play with that for yourself in this next week. Find some place where you may be bringing in more expectations and step into some agreements on that. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you bringing that in. Martine, how about you? If there's one thing you want to let Outliers know, and then we're going to go around and wrap up with let them know how they can stay in touch with you and such.
Okay, well, I'm going to run the risk of sounding like a broken record, but I'm here for it. So my little bit of, and I'll keep it short and sweet, to do well in any aspect of your life, whether that's personal or professional or both, you need to be well. And that very much is my message in terms of well-being and productivity. So to do well, you need to be well. I'll wrap it up there.
Well, I thank you all here. What we're going to do, we're going to end. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to jump deeper into your worlds, right? So we're going to do it fairly quickly because we're coming up on the top of the hour here. But what I'd love for you to do is to let Outliers know how they can go deeper in your world. And I always end each conversation with an insight that each of you have gotten, right? So share something that you are walking away from this conversation with. And if you got no insight, that's okay, right? Why don't we start with you, Jamie? Then we'll go to you, Martine. Then we'll go to you, Paul, and we'll close for today. So.
JamieGeorge.com. There's most of my world. You can find me there. I do a bunch of coaching on TikTok, Jamie George Coach. And the podcast is Thrivalist Podcast. The insight I have is just sitting here with the three of you smart people and listening to you. It's funny. It is about intellect, but it's also about energy. And I would say the biggest thing I take away from is I could just feel the energy in you guys, and there is a resonant spirit with you. So it feels like a pleasure to get to know you.
Thanks so much for being here, Jamie. Martine?
If anyone wants to stalk me online, I encourage them heartily to do so because that's my favorite thing. You can find me at martineellis.com, and that's got all my social links and everything on there, and the podcast and all that jazz. I guess in terms of social media, the place I'm spending most time at the moment is LinkedIn. That's a real change of late, but LinkedIn is where I seem to be hanging out the most. So check me out at martineellis.com. And then in terms of insight, I'm quite a slow processor. So I'll probably have the answer to that question, I don't know, about 11 o'clock this evening for me. But I've had a really lovely time, a high energy conversation, connected with some really cool people. And I think to give you one tangible thing, I'm going to play around with that idea of definition of success. Actually, that's something I'm going to reflect on. I think that will be in my journal this evening. So thanks for this lovely chat.
Thank you so much, Martine and Paul.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn, Paul Sloane. I'm on Twitter, Paul Sloane. I'm on TikTok. And you can find me on YouTube as well. My TEDx talk, Paul Sloane TEDx. And you can find my books on Amazon, Paul Sloane with an E. One of the things I believe strongly is that you can learn something from everybody, but only if you ask questions and listen. I meet people when I'm playing golf and I ask them a lot of questions. They don't ask me any questions. And I've learned a lot about them. They've learned nothing about me. It's often the case. But there were a lot of useful insights tonight. Just to pick up on a couple. Expectations are premeditated resentments. When I heard that, I nearly fell off my chair. What does he mean by that? And I don't think he means your own expectation. I think when you have expectations of others, and we do, and I have expectations of my grandchildren, and I articulate those, and maybe I shouldn't have expressed those expectations. I should instead say, what do you want to achieve, and look to some kind of agreement. So that was an insight. To do well, you have to be well. And it sounds trite, but it's absolutely true. You have to have your own mental health and well-being sorted in order to achieve anything else. And I think that's something I've realized more and more, that your health and your relationships are really fundamental to your well-being and success, and just driving hard for achievement at work is not always the answer. So I really enjoyed it, and I've learned a few things.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you is really what comes out here. You all are fantastic. I appreciate you bringing your experience to this conversation and being your outliers out in the world. Outliers, here's the thing. Until the next time we talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.